January 30th, 1933. Thousands of Germans filled the streets of Berlin, carrying burning torches. Their cheers echoed through the cold night as one man stepped onto a balcony, raising his hand to acknowledge the crowd below. Just 10 years earlier, that same man had been sitting in a prison cell after a failed coup. Most Germans dismissed him as an angry extremist whose political career was over. So how did a failed revolutionary become the leader of one of Europe's most powerful nations? The answer wasn't a single election, a single speech, or a single conspiracy. It was a perfect storm of fear, economic collapse, political chaos, and one man's relentless ambition. And what happened next would change the course of history forever.
To understand Hitler's rise, we have to go back to a Germany that looked nothing like the powerful nation people imagine today. In 1918, the First World War ended in disaster for Germany. Millions were dead, the Kaiser had abdicated, and the empire had collapsed almost overnight. Then came the Treaty of Versailles. Germany lost territory, was forced to reduce its military, and accepted responsibility for the war while facing enormous reparations. Many Germans felt humiliated. Factories struggled. Families went hungry. Veterans returned home to unemployment instead of victory. Across the country, anger was growing. Most people weren't looking for another war. They were looking for someone who promised hope. They would soon find someone willing to promise almost anything.
Adolf Hitler had once dreamed of becoming an artist. Twice he applied to the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Twice he was rejected. Instead, he drifted between odd jobs before serving as a soldier during World War I. Unlike many veterans, Hitler struggled to accept Germany's defeat. He believed the nation had not been defeated on the battlefield, but betrayed from within. A false conspiracy known as the stab-in-the-back myth that many nationalists promoted after the war. After the conflict, Hitler joined a small political group called the German Workers' Party. It had only a handful of members. Few people paid attention to it. But there was one thing Hitler possessed that many politicians did not.
He could command a room. His speeches were emotional, dramatic, and carefully crafted to channel people's anger towards simple explanations and scapegoats. Crowds grew larger. Donations increased. Within a short time, the party changed its name to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party. But Hitler wanted more than influence. He wanted power, and he was willing to risk everything to get it.
That workers were paid multiple times a day before prices rose again. Savings disappeared almost overnight. Some people carried wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. Hitler believed the government was collapsing. Inspired by Benito Mussolini's March on Rome, he attempted to seize power by force in Munich. The plan became known as the Beer Hall Putsch. It was a disaster. Police opened fire. The coup collapsed within hours.
Hitler was arrested and charged with treason. Many believed his political career was finished. But prison became an unexpected opportunity. While serving his sentence, Hitler dictated Mein Kampf, outlining his ideology and long-term political goals. More importantly, he reached a crucial conclusion. He would never seize Germany through a violent revolution. Next time, he would use democracy itself.
For several years, Germany slowly stabilized. Support for the Nazi Party remained limited. Then the world changed. In 1929, the Great Depression struck. Banks failed. Businesses closed. Millions lost their jobs. Desperate families waited in long lines for food, while politicians argued endlessly inside Parliament. Faith in democracy began to crumble. The Nazis offered simple answers to complicated problems. They promised jobs, national pride, economic recovery. Germany's political leaders believed they could control Hitler. Several conservative politicians convinced President Paul von Hindenburg to appoint him chancellor. They assumed he would be surrounded by experienced ministers who would keep him in check. One politician reportedly remarked that they had hired Hitler and would manage him. It was one of the greatest political miscalculations of the 20th century. On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany.
To many Germans, it seemed like just another change in government. Few imagined how quickly everything would change. Within weeks, a dramatic event shook the nation. The Reichstag building, the home of Germany's parliament, caught fire. The government declared a state of emergency. Civil liberties were suspended. Political opponents were arrested. The balance of power shifted almost overnight. Germany's democracy was beginning to disappear.
In March 1933, the German parliament voted on the Enabling Act. The law allowed Hitler's government to pass legislation without parliamentary approval. Under immense political pressure and intimidation, enough lawmakers supported the measure for it to pass. That vote fundamentally changed Germany's system of government. Over the following months, opposition parties were banned, independent labor unions were dismantled, critics were imprisoned, and the Nazi Party became the dominant political force. The transformation was astonishingly fast. A nation that had held competitive elections only months earlier had become an authoritarian state. The rise to power was complete, but the consequences were only beginning. The decisions made during those months would lead Germany and much of the world toward catastrophe. People often ask how one man could rise to such enormous power. The answer is more complicated than a single speech or election. It was the result of economic collapse, political instability, fear, effective propaganda, and a series of decisions by leaders who believed they could control someone they fundamentally underestimated. History reminds us that democratic institutions can be weakened gradually, often during moments of national crisis when people are searching for simple answers to difficult problems.
The story of Hitler's rise is not just the story of one individual. It is a warning about how fragile democracy can become when fear, division, and authoritarian promises outweigh accountability and the rule of law. That is why, more than 90 years later, this chapter of history continues to be studied around the world. Because understanding how it happened is one of the best ways to help prevent it from happening again.
If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more cinematic history stories every week. And let us know in the comments, what single event do you think made Hitler's rise to power possible? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next documentary.